The truth about getting toned. You've been lied to about getting toned. Toned isn't a special type of workout, and it's definitely not about light weights and endless reps. In this video, I'm breaking down what getting toned actually means, what needs to happen in your training and nutrition, and why so many people stay stuck chasing it. We'll go over how to train to build muscle without getting bulky, how fat actually plays a role, and the biggest mistakes I see people make. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to train if your goal is that lean, defined look. First point, toned is not a special type of muscle, it's muscle plus low enough body fat. One of the biggest lies in the fitness industry is that toned is its own thing. Like, there's a specific workout, rep range, or style of training that magically creates it. When people say they want to get toned, what they actually mean is that they want visible muscle definition without looking bulky. And the truth is, being toned is not a special outcome. It's simply having enough muscle built underneath and a low enough body fat percentage so you can actually see that muscle. There's no toning exercise, there's no toning program, no toning dumbbells. Muscle only does two things: it grows or it shrinks. It doesn't tone, sculpt, lengthen, or change shape depending on how you train it. A lot of confusion comes from how fitness is marketed, especially to women. We're constantly sold the idea that certain workouts will tone your arms or sculpt your legs or get a tighter waist, when in reality, those workouts are either helping you build muscle, burn calories, or both. The word toned is usually just a softer, less intimidating way of saying muscle growth or fat loss. And while I understand why that language exists, because for a long time, women have been taught to fear muscle, it actually ends up holding people back. When we avoid the real terminology, we avoid the real process. The shape of your muscles is largely genetic. When they insert how long they are and how they look on your frame is something you don't control. Training doesn't change the shape of a muscle, it changes its size. That's why no exercise can lengthen a muscle or create a different look in one specific spot. This misunderstanding is also why so many people diet, lose weight, and still feel so disappointed with how they look. If you don't have muscle underneath, there's nothing to reveal when you lose fat. So instead of looking toned, you just look like a smaller version of the same shape. That's not a failure. It's a predictable outcome of focusing only on weight loss. On the other hand, if you build muscle but never address body fat levels, that muscle stays hidden. You might feel stronger, which is great, but visually nothing changes the way you expected. That's where frustration usually sets in. The aesthetic most people are chasing actually lives in the middle. It comes from strength training that builds muscle over time, combined with the nutrition that supports fat loss or maintenance when appropriate. Not all at once, not in extremes, and not through random workouts. Once you understand this, everything gets simpler for you. You stop chasing workouts that promise to tone one body part, and you start asking better questions. Instead of, will this tone my arms? You ask, is this building muscle? Instead of constantly cutting calories, you ask, am I eating in a way that supports my training and my goal right now? That mindset shift is huge. It takes you out of confusion and puts you in control. You're no longer bouncing between trends or blaming your body for not responding. You're training with intention, understanding what actually changes your physique, and giving yourself realistic expectations. And honestly, that understanding alone already puts you ahead of most people in the gym. Second point, light weights and high reps aren't the secret, progressive overload is. Another huge misconception is fitness is that lifting light weights for high reps is how you get toned, while lifting heavy automatically makes you bulky. This belief has been passed around for decades, especially to women, and it's honestly one of the biggest reasons people feel stuck despite working out consistently. A lot of women are doing everything they were told to do using light weights, chasing that burn, doing HIIT workouts, doing endless reps, and still not seeing the changes they actually want. That's not because their bodies aren't responding, it's because the strategy itself is flawed. Muscle growth doesn't care whether a weight is considered light or heavy. What it actually responds to is tension and progression. If you're lifting the same 5 or 10 pounds every time for years, your body has no reason to change. You've already adapted to that. At that point, you're maintaining what you have, not building anything new. Getting toned requires building muscle, and building muscle requires progressive overload. That simply means you gradually increase the demand you place on your muscles over time. Sometimes that looks like lifting heavier weights. Other times it looks like doing more reps with the same weight, slowing down your tempo, improving your form, or increasing your total training volume. Progress doesn't have to be dramatic, but it does have to exist. There's also this fear that lifting heavier weights will suddenly make you bulky, and that just doesn't align with reality. Muscle growth is slow, especially for women. It takes years of consistent training, intentional programming, and usually eating in a calorie surplus to build significant size. Most women don't accidentally get bulky. They struggle to build muscle at all. Genetics, hormones, and energy intake all play a role in a woman's body. And for most people, adding noticeable muscle is actually very challenging. What lifting heavier really does is create denser, firmer muscle, which is exactly what people describe as being toned. Light weights aren't useless. They can be great for beginners who are learning movement patterns or form, for accessory exercises or higher rep work that target smaller groups, but they're not magical and they're not enough on their own forever. If your entire workout revolves around chasing a burn or feeling exhausted, you're probably just training fatigue, not transformation. That burning sensation doesn't mean you're building muscle. It just means the muscle is just tired. And while fatigue can feel productive, it's not the same thing as progress. Training should feel intentional. You should know what you're working on, why you're doing certain exercises, and whether you're improving over time. That means tracking your weights, your reps, or at least having some sort of awareness of what you did last week compared to this week. When you can visually see progress, your body can respond to it. That's how muscle is built. The irony is that once women start lifting heavier and fueling their bodies properly, they often end up looking leaner, tighter, and more athletic, not bigger. Strength training doesn't make you bulky. In most cases, eating without awareness and avoiding muscle building entirely does the opposite of what people want. Lifting heavy isn't the problem. Not lifting progressively is. Third point, nutrition matters more than you want it to, but not in an extreme way. You can't out-train your nutrition, and you also don't need to starve yourself to look toned. Both extremes exist online, and both are wrong. On one side, you have the idea that you can eat whatever you want as long as you train hard enough, and on the other, you have the belief that getting toned means eating as little as possible. Neither approach works long-term. Getting toned requires enough protein to support muscle growth and enough calories to fuel your training, but also if fat loss is part of the goal, a calorie deficit at some point. That balance is where most people get confused. A lot of people train hard but eat like they're scared of food. They undereat, skip meals, or avoid entire food groups and then wonder why they feel weak, exhausted, and not visibly toned. When you don't eat enough, your body isn't in a position to build muscle no matter how good your workouts are. On the flip side, some people eat healthy foods but never pay attention to portions or overall intake. They assume that because the food is clean, fat loss should just happen. And when it doesn't, they feel frustrated and stuck and just keep confused about things. Both situations come from a lack of alignment between nutrition and the actual goal. Protein is non-negotiable. If you're not eating enough protein, you're making everything harder than it needs to be. Muscle is literally built from protein, and without it, your body can't repair or grow muscle tissues effectively. Protein also helps keep you full, which makes fat loss easier to maintain, and it helps preserve lean mass when you are in a calorie deficit. On top of that, recovery improves when protein intake is adequate, meaning you can train better and more consistently. Yet this is still one of the most common things people overlook. Carbs are not the enemy. They fuel your workouts, support performance, and help you train with enough intensity to actually stimulate muscle growth. When people cut carbs too aggressively, training quality usually drops, which slows progress. Fats are just as important. They play a huge role in hormone health, energy levels, and overall well-being. The issue is not carbs or fats, it's inconsistency and extremes. Jumping from restriction to overeating or constantly changing your approach keeps your body in a reactive state instead of a productive one. The toned look comes from doing the boring things well over and over again. Eating enough protein consistently, fueling your workouts instead of trying to survive them, avoiding crash diets that promise quick results but destroy adherence, and adjusting your intake based on what you're actually trying to achieve in that phase, whether that's building muscle, losing fat, or maintaining progress. There's no need to eat clean 24/7. You need a way of eating that fits your life and that you can maintain long enough for results to show. Most people don't fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they choose approaches they can't stick to. If your plan makes you miserable, constantly tired, or obsessed with food, it's not a good plan. No matter how effective it looks on paper, sustainable nutrition always wins, or else you are going to feel drained. Fourth point, cardio helps, but it won't tone you by itself. Cardio has been marked as the main tool for getting toned, especially for women, and while it absolutely has its benefits, it's not the solution by itself. For years, we've been told that more cardio equals a leaner, more defined body. And while cardio does burn calories, improve heart health, and support fat loss, it doesn't build muscle in a meaningful way. If your entire routine is cardio and ab workouts, you're missing the foundation. That's why so many people can run, spin, or do HIIT workouts for years and still describe themselves as feeling soft. Without resistance training, you're not creating the muscle needed for that toned look. Cardio can help reduce body fat, but if there's no muscle underneath, there's nothing to reveal. That's where the frustration comes from. People are working hard, sweating a lot, and still not seeing the results that they want and the definition they expected. It's not because cardio doesn't work, it's because cardio was never meant to do that job alone. Cardio should be a supplement, quote unquote, not the base of your routine. For most people, the best approach is a combination of strength training and cardio with strength training as the priority. Strength training is what builds muscle, shapes your physique, and creates that firm athletic look that people are associating with being toned. Cardio then supports that process by improving endurance, helping with fat loss when needed, and supporting overall health. You don't need to live on the treadmill or do intense cardio every single day. You also don't need to suffer through workouts you hate. Cardio doesn't have to mean endless running if that's not your thing. Or a few higher intensity sessions per week can all be effective. The best form of cardio is the one you could do consistently without burning yourself out or dreading your workouts. One of the biggest mistakes people make is using cardio as punishment for eating or as a replacement for lifting. That mindset turns movement into something negative instead of supportive. Cardio shouldn't be something you feel like you have to earn or suffer through to undo the food that you ate. And it definitely shouldn't come at the expense of strength training if your goal is to look toned. Lifting builds the body, cardio supports it. More cardio is not always better. Too much can interfere with recovery, increase overall stress on the body, and make it harder to build or even maintain muscle, especially if you're under eating. If you're constantly exhausted, sore, or plateaued, piling on more cardio usually isn't the answer. The goal isn't to burn as many calories as possible. The goal is to create a body that looks strong, feels capable, and performs well. When you stop treating cardio like the main character and start treating it as a supporting tool, everything changes. Training becomes more imbalanced, results become more predictable, and you finally start seeing the definition you've been working so hard for. Fifth point, the toned look you're chasing is heavily influenced by lighting, angles, and timing. One thing that almost no one is truly honest about is how much the toned look we all admire is influenced by factors that have very little to do with the actual body composition. Lighting, camera angles, posture, muscle pump, hydration, and even the time of day all play a huge role in how defined someone looks on screen. A body can look dramatically different within the same day depending on whether you've trained, eaten, slept well, or even just had enough water. And yet we compare our everyday, relaxed bodies to someone else's most optimized moment. Social media rarely shows neutral lighting, unflexed posture, or bodies sitting at maintenance calories. Most toned photos and videos are taken right after a workout when muscles are pumped with blood. Definition is temporarily enhanced and lighting is carefully chosen. There's usually intentional posing, angles that highlight certain features, and sometimes even slight dehydration. None of that means the person isn't fit or strong. It just means you're seeing a highlight, not a baseline. But when those highlights become the standard people compare themselves to, it creates a really distorted expectation of what being toned actually looks like in real life. The problem starts when people think they're supposed to look photo ready all the time. When they don't, they assume something is wrong with their training, their diet, or their discipline. That mindset leads to unnecessary frustration and often pushes people toward extreme dieting or overtraining, trying to force their body into a look that isn't meant to be permanent. In reality, being toned in real life usually looks softer than people expected, especially when you're relaxed. Muscle doesn't pop constantly. Definition comes and goes throughout the day. Even abs, which are the most glamorized marker of fitness, don't stay fully visible unless someone is very lean. And staying that lean year round isn't sustainable or healthy for most people. When influencers don't talk about this, it feeds the idea that there's a permanent toned state you're supposed to reach and maintain. But fitness isn't a freeze frame, it's dynamic. Your body is constantly responding to stress, food intake, sleep quality, hormones, and your training volume. Some days you'll look leaner, some days you'll look fuller, some days you'll look softer, and some days you'll look bloated. And all of those versions of your body can still belong to someone who trains hard, eats well, and is objectively fit. Understanding this doesn't mean lowering your standards or giving up on your goals. It means seeing realistic ones. It means recognizing that progress isn't invalid just because your body doesn't look exactly the same every day. When you stop chasing a look that only exists under perfect conditions, you can actually start appreciating the changes you've worked for. You also stop sabotaging yourself with extreme dieting just to match an image that isn't even real most of the time. The toned look isn't fake, but the way it's often presented is. And once you see that clarity, it becomes a lot easier to focus on training for strength, confidence, and long-term results instead of trying to look like a screenshot. If you found this video valuable, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more fitness and health related content, specifically for us girls who want to achieve our dream body, mind, soul, and spirit. Stay consistent, stay confident, and I'll see you in the next one.